Okay, so this is the Gemara, Zevachim, Daf 6. So at the end it says, it is because they are like partners. So now Daf 6, and partners cannot affect substitution of other animals for their offering. But if you say that it is not acquired by them, and the animal is the property solely of the deceased father, let them also effect substitution on his behalf, as heirs are able to effect substitution for their deceased parents' offerings. So the Gemara answers, there it is different, as although the verse states, if he shall at all change, or hamar yamir, animal for animal, Leviticus 27 verse 10, the superfluous word hamer, serving to include the heir, has one who is able to effect substitution. Nevertheless, the subject's singular form teaches that only one heir can effect substitution, but two heirs cannot effect substitution. So Rav Yaakov of Nahar Pakod objects to this derivation. If that is so, one should say the same with regard to the redemption of the second tithe, as it is written, quote, if a man will redeem any of the superfluous, and if a man will redeem any of his tithe, he shall add to it the fifth part thereof. Leviticus 27:31. With the superfluous word gaol, serving to include the heir, so gaol yigal, will redeem, as one must add the 1/5. So too it should be derived from the verb's singular form that if one heir redeems the tithe, he must add 1/5 to its value. But if two heirs redeem it, they do not need to add 1/5. In fact, the halacha is that partners must also add 1/5. So the Gemara answers, redemption of the tithe is different, as the father had the ability to redeem the tithe even in partnership with another when alive. Therefore, the heirs can do so as well. By contrast, substitution of an offering cannot be effected by partners. So Rav Asi said to Rav Ashi, but from this halakha itself, that two heirs cannot effect substitution of an offering, it can be proven that they acquired the offering of the deceased. Granted, if you say it is acquired by them, this is the reason that one heir, in any event, can effect substitution of another animal for the offering. But if you say it is not acquired by them, how can even one heir effect substitution? But doesn't Rabbi Abahu say that Rabbi Yochanan says, if one consecrates his own animal to atone for someone else and he then redeems it, he adds 1/5 of its value, as he would for any other offering he owned. But if the one for whom it atones redeems it, he need not add 1/5, since he is not the owner. Nevertheless, only one for whom the offering atones can redeem another animal, render another animal a substitute for it, as in this respect only he is considered its owner. So Rabbi Yochanan's statement concludes, and if one separates teruma from his own produce to exempt the produce of another from the obligation to have teruma separated from it, the benefit of discretion is his. Only the one who separated the teruma is entitled to determine which priest receives it. Since an heir is able to effect substitution, apparently the offering atones for his transgression. This supports the claim that the heir acquires the offering. So Rav Ashi responds, the offering does not atone for the transgressions of the heirs by its essence, as it was not consecrated for their atonement, and they do not acquire it. Therefore, two heirs of a meal offering can bring it, as explained above, yet it does not atone for them incidentally. Therefore, an heir can effect substitution of another animal for it. So with regard to the halacha that offerings slaughtered not for their sake are fit to be sacrificed, but do not satisfy the obligations of their owners, a dilemma was raised before the sages. After these offerings are sacrificed, did they atone for the sins for which they came, or did they not atone for them? With regard to the halacha that offerings slaughtered not for their sake are fit to be sacrificed, but do not satisfy the obligations of their owners, a dilemma was raised before the sages. After these offerings are sacrificed, did they atone for the sins for which they came, or did they not atone for them? So Rav Sheshet, son of Rav Edi, said, it stands to reason that they did not atone, as if it enters your mind that they did atone, for what purposes the second offering brought. Why is the owner required to bring another offering if the first atoned for a sin? The Gemara challenges this reasoning. Rather, what is the alternative? That they did not atone. If so, for what purpose is the first offering sacrificed? So Rav Ashi said, this is what is difficult for Rav Shesha. So Rav Sheshet, son of Rav Edi, says, granted, if you say that such an offering did not atone, it is brought even when slaughtered not for its sake, on the strength of its prior consecration for its sake. And in that case, for what purpose is the second offering brought? It is brought to atone for the sin. But if you say that offerings that were slaughtered not for their sake atone for the sin, for what purpose is the second offering brought? A dilemma was raised before the sages. When one brings a burnt offering which atones for violations of positive mitzvot, does it atone even for a violation of a positive mitzvah that one committed after designating the animal as an offering, or does it not atone for such a violation? The Gemara elaborates, do we say that the halacha in this case is just as it is with regard to a sin offering, and that just as a sin offering does atone for sin that one committed before desecration of the animal, before designation of the animal, but does not atone for sin that one committed after designation, here too a burnt offering does atone for a violation that one committed before designation, but does not atone for those committed after designation. Or perhaps a burnt offering is not similar to a sin offering, as with regard to a sin offering, one must bring one sin offering for each and every sin he commits. But here, since a burnt offering atones even for one who has committed several violations of positive mitzvah, one may claim that it atones even for the violation of a positive mitzvah that one committed after designation of the animal. The Gemara suggests, Tashema, coming here from Braita, a proof from the Braita, the verse states, and he shall place his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and shall be accepted for him to atone for him. Leviticus 1:4. And does placing hands atone for one's sins? But isn't it atonement achieved only by the sprinkling of the blood, as it stated, for it is the blood that makes atonement by reason of the life. Leviticus 17:11. Rather, what is the meaning when the verse states, and he shall place, etc., and it shall be accepted for him to atone? End of quote. This teaches that if one deemed the ritual of placing hands to be a non-essential mitzvah and consequently failed to perform it, the verse ascribes to him blame as though the offering did not atone for his sins, and nevertheless the offering atoned for his sins. So what does the final clause of the Braita not mean? That the offering atoned for the violation of any positive mitzvah that the owner committed before designation of the animal, but it did not atone for violation of a positive mitzvah of placing hands on the animal, on the head of but it did not atone for violation of the positive mitzvah of placing hands on the head of the offering, as that constitutes a violation of a positive mitzvah after designation of the animal. Apparently, a burnt offering does not atone for the violations committed after the animal's designation. Rava said in response, you say that the positive mitzvah of placing hands is proof. There it is different, since as long as he does not slaughter the offering, he remains obligated to stand and place his hands on its head. He has not yet violated the mitzvah. When does the violation of this positive mitzvah occur? It occurs after the slaughter, at which point fulfillment of the mitzvah is no longer possible. And with regard to a violation committed after the slaughter, we do not raise the dilemma. Clearly, a burnt offering does not atone for such a violation. So Rav Huna Bar Yehuda said to Rava, say the Baraita means that the offering atoned for the transgression of the person. I'll continue this. This is Daf 6 Amud Beit. But it did not atone for him before heaven. That is, it is not accepted by God as a perfect offering. And I'm going to stop there. That finishes Amud Aleph.